This week on Maker Update, a 3D scan of the Titanic shipwreck, LED-lit mermaid hair, a Victorian mob boss suit, and a robot arm made of stained glass. Hi, I'm Jen Schachter, joining you from my home workshop in the Bay Area to guest host this week's episode. We have a fun show for you this week, featuring new projects from some of my favorite makers, so let's dive right in. For the project of the week, Bernadette Banner has been working on a 3-piece Victorian suit and completed the video series on her channel this week. It's packed with precise tailoring techniques, antique sewing machine ASMR, and a fascinating history lesson on the evolution of garment design. She sets the stage for the type of Victorian lady who would wear such a garment and possibly purchase it with her own wages. Given the newfound independence of working women at the time and trends in literature and theater, Bernadette imagines this piece belonging to a stylish Victorian mob boss. She tailors an existing jacket pattern and uses traditional methods and materials like horsehair canvas lining, boning inserts, and surgically precise hand stitching to get as close to a Victorian-era creation as possible. She even inspects an actual 19th century jacket from her own collection to study its interior boning structure. Now, I'm not a seamstress, but it's hard not to share Bernadette's joy as she revels in the successful execution of a pad-stitched curving lapel, and also her annoyance with the repetitive tedium of attaching the lining. I also love Bernadette's closing thoughts about how tailoring is actually a rather complex engineering process of shaping and sculpting two-dimensional fabric to contour to the human form. The jacket comes together with dramatic poofy sleeves and a matching pinstripe waistcoat and skirt, which are covered in parts 1 and 2 of this series. If you're interested in sustainable fashion and learning how to mend and create your own garments, Bernadette has written a whole book and a Skillshare class, as well as a wealth of videos with historical citations and a bill of materials she uses for each project. In news this week, a deep-sea mapping company called Magellan has created a full-scale 3D model of the Titanic shipwreck, where it sits 2 miles down on the ocean floor. Over a 6-week expedition, they captured 16 terabytes of image data, which was then stitched together to create the most detailed look at the entire ship to date, down to individual rivets and the serial number on the ship's propeller. In other news, makers from across the pond gathered in Birmingham earlier this month to show off their creations and hang out. Thankfully, for those of us who couldn't make the trip, there was plenty of coverage from the show floor and behind the scenes. Ruth and Sean from Kids Invent Stuff rolled around in their business baby walker, and Colin Furze displayed a section of his legendary tunnel. It seems like everyone had a jolly good time. Moving on to other projects, Becky Stern shared a tutorial for making a lighted mermaid hairpiece. She used several strands of addressable LED pixels on flexible wire to weave and sculpt a branch-like shape which can wrap around the wearer's head. Using an Arduino and the tiny Zhao RP2040 board, Becky altered the code for the standard rainbow LED sequence to only express certain colors for her design. She embellished the finished strands with 3D printed shell diffusers and gemstone hair clips. Becky's friend Hinano also joins in to share some tips for creating the finished hairstyle and a fish-scale mermaid makeup effect. Michael Alm built a custom shipping crate for a carved wooden sculpture, applying his knowledge from working in museums to design an enclosure that both protects the fragile piece from damage and makes the unboxing experience for the recipient as streamlined and intuitive as possible. There are whole museum departments dedicated to conservation and transport of art and artifacts, and this is one of those behind-the-scenes jobs that has always fascinated me. The design of this crate is, it's beautiful engineering, and Michael's video really demonstrates how case building is an art form of its own. Bob Claggett of I Like to Make Stuff upgraded a carpeted staircase in his home to a set of handsome hardwood smart steps using sensors and LED light strips. With the expertise of someone who has done this many times before, Bob removes the carpeting and installs new stair treads and risers, and modifies the skirt along one side to run the wires. He creates removable LED bars using half-inch plywood, some sanded plexi as diffusion, JST connectors, and some tile shims to undermount the strips below each step. Bob used an Arduino Uno and 3 PIR sensors placed along the railing to detect a person's position and illuminate the LED strips in sequence. The whole system runs off a 40-amp power supply tucked cleverly inside the wall and showcases a few different light sequences to choose from. The finished result is a pretty slick and entertaining home improvement. Simone combined two of her favorite pastimes, stained glass and robots, to create a working stained glass robot arm. She starts by patterning the glass sections off an existing robot structure, but once the force of the control motors is applied to the delicate glass and leading assembly, tragedy strikes. Of course, Simone writes her own rules in the unprecedented stained glass robot arm industry, and the resulting solution is a beautifully strange machine in the style of Grandma Cyberpunk. For tips this week, Beverly Downen of Downen Creative Studios shared a clever way to make highly portable dress forms on her recent visit to Adam Savage's workshop. Beverly used Foss Shape, a felt-like thermoplastic, and traditional costuming techniques to pattern and stitch the form. Once heat is applied, the form then shrinks and hardens, resulting in a figure that is both lightweight and easily nestable by unzipping around the center seam. It is perfect solution for displaying cosplay creations at con booths on the road. Dan from America's Test Kitchen shares why baking soda is the most useful ingredient in your kitchen. You're probably familiar with its use in baking, hence the name, but did you know baking soda solution is a fantastic meat tenderizer? Dan takes a deep dive on the chemistry magic of sodium bicarbonate. As an example, it changes the charge of the muscle fibers inside of the meat so they repel each other, staying loosely woven, so to speak, and retaining moisture. For non-meat eaters, it can also be used to drastically shorten the cooking time and softness of vegetables. So cool. That's all I have for today's show. Be sure to subscribe and let us know if any of these projects sparked some ideas for you. Big thanks to DigiKey for making this show possible and inviting me to guest host. Thanks so much for watching.